Hey guys, so I am here with my Cotton Cuts Puzzle Mystery for 2018, this way and that way. This is the small size part 6, and I have the ballet colorway, and so that makes me Team Ballet, Team Jellybean. So I've laid out all of the fabric that we have received for this piece. And we are going to be making, I know you can't see this, but I've got my little tags for the G1 and 2 and the H1 and 2. That's going to be the two pieces that we are going to complete today. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to take 2 of these triangles, and they actually call them 7 1/4 inch quarter square triangles. Okay, so we'll take 2 of those and in this direction, and we are going to take 2 of the half square triangles, which are 3 7/8 of an inch, and we are going to put them this way on the piece. And I'm hoping that you can, yeah, you can't really see that. Okay, hold on. Let me scooch my pieces over. And then I can move these over. I don't know if y'all can hear Jellybean yowling down there. That boy's crazy. Alright, so we have 2 like this. So what we're going to do is once we have them in place there, we're going to flip them right sides together. And the really great thing, as you know, is that Cotton Cuts cuts the little corners so that we can fit them properly. And I'm going to mark my 1/4 inch seam as soon as I get this done. It's actually, as you know, a scant 1/4 inch. And the way that I have been doing that is when I take my ruler to mark the 1/4 inch, there is a line, a dotted line. At least if you're using a Creative Grids ruler, this is how they have them. So there is a dotted line at the 1/4 inch, and I'm going to take the dotted line and I'm going to put it just below the fabric, so that I am making the 1/4 inch actually just a tiny bit smaller, which is how we're going to do the scant 1/4 inch. The other reason that you want to sort of pull your ruler down a little bit is because when you make the mark with either a pen or a pencil that will go away, anything that you use does have a thickness to it. So, you know, if you keep marking and also putting your needle in certain places without taking that into consideration, you're losing some of the 1/4 inch, or you're actually gaining some of the 1/4 inch. So you're actually making your seam larger than it's supposed to be. And normally, like if you're making something very forgiving, in my opinion anyway, like a bag or, you know, various other things, or if you are making a quilt of your own design and you don't, you know, really care too much about how things, then you don't need to worry about it too much. But when you're using a pattern that someone else has made, you typically should, and this is just my opinion, if you don't, that's okay. Everybody has a different way that they sew, and I hope no one ever takes my opinion as, you know, gold, because it's not. Plenty of people have so many different ideas, and there is nothing wrong with any of them. But this is what I think. I think that when you're making someone else's pattern, it's always best to do a scant 1/4 inch, only because it's better if your square turns out larger than it's supposed to be. Because when it turns out smaller, there's really nothing you can do except to try to change the size of everything. If your square is too large, you can always cut it down. That's just my opinion. So I try really hard to, if anything, cheat in the way of making my squares bigger than they're supposed to be. Okay, so I will put this dotted line to the outside of the fabric. And I always make sure, I know that I sit here and I study for what seems like forever, but you know, measure 100,000 times, mark once. You know what I mean? Like, just, it's important, especially with squares like this, whenever you're making something that's someone else's pattern, and you know, it's a specific thing and it's got to come together. I just feel that, you know, it's just the smart thing to do. That's what I feel. Doesn't mean I'm right. You know, doesn't mean that at all. There are plenty of people out there who I'm sure would prove me wrong. So that's okay. Heck, if I knew of another way that was absolutely, you know, better than what I do and takes less time and all of that kind of stuff, and it's something that I could actually conform to, I'd be happy to do that, because no one wants to just waste time. I mean, my goodness, I don't have enough time to waste. I don't get to sew enough as it is. Okay, so let's pin this one. I'll probably only do the pinning with you on this one time. I think if you see me pin and mark once, it's plenty. All this I can probably do off camera and not bore the heck out of everybody. Okay, so I'm going to take these two pieces, I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, and I'll meet you back there. Okay, so here we are at the machine. I'm just going to sew down this 1/4 inch line, and as I've said before, I'm not sure if this is your first time watching, but I personally sew just to the inside of the seam allowance, and that is to make up not only for the thickness of the pin that we are using to mark our line, but also the thickness of the needle, which comes into play as well. So I just, in order to keep with the scant 1/4 inch, I will sew to just to the inside of the seam allowance. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I have these two ready. I'm going to take them over to the ironing board and press them, and then I'll be back with the next step. Okay, so I'm back from the ironing board, and I have also determined that our next step is to take two more of these half square triangles, and we're going to attach them to the other side. So it's basically the same thing, except on the other side I have flipped them right sides together, and I have marked them with the scant 1/4 inch, and we're ready to sew. Okay, so I have these ready, and I'm going to take them over to the ironing board, press them, and come back for step 3. Okay, so I've pressed those pieces. You can sort of see it there. And then we have to add the two squares of the number 2 fabric to the left side of this flying geese piece. And we have 2 of those, of course. I have already drawn my scant 1/4 inch line, and we are ready to sew. Okay, so I'm going to go and press that, and I'll be right back with step number 4. Okay, so I'm back and we are on step number 4. We are adding this long strip of fabric number 1 to the bottom of what we had just put together before. And I do have my scant 1/4 inch marked on the fabric, and so I'm ready to sew. Here we go. Okay, so I've finished sewing those together, and I'm going to go and press that. And then I think we have a piece to add to this side and this side. So I'll be right back with that last step for these 2 pieces. Okay, so I am back from everything. Pressing, marking, also had to go and feed the kitty cats because they, Jellybean was attacking me. So anyway, these are the last 2 pieces that we are going to add to these 2, and then we have 2 more blocks to make. I think this is the G1, G2, and then we have an H1, H2. So this is the first part of this month's blocks. So I do have them marked with my scant 1/4 inch on either side. We have this big square attached, and then we have this little rectangle attached. So I'm going to get started on that, and here we go. Okay, so I have actually finished with the G1 and G2. I only need to press these out, and then we're going to get started on the next 2 blocks, and I'll be right back with the first step on those. Okay, so it looks like the H1 and H2 squares are H1, H2 pieces, I guess we'll say, blocks. They're going to start out the exact same way that the G1 and 2 did. So we have the same, I think they're calling this a 1/4 square triangle and half square triangle going together, and then we're going to have another one put on this side, so it'll be like a flying geese. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go through all of those real quick, and then we'll get to step 3. Okay, so I have both of the half square triangles attached to the 1/4 square triangle. I'm going to press out this last 2 pieces, and I'll be right back with step 3. Okay, so I'm back, and step 3 is to add this square to the left side of the flying geese that we have just put together. I have drawn the scant 1/4 inch line and I'm ready to sew. Okay, so I have attached those 2 squares. I'm going to go and press that and we'll get to step number 4. Okay guys, so I am back. It's actually the next day because I ran out of battery, of course. So we only have 2 more steps on this, on these 2 little blocks. So I have already added these pieces. This is actually the way it should go, like this. So we have the flying geese, we have the 1 square to the left, and now we have this long rectangle to attach to the bottom. So I have already marked my seam allowance and ready to sew. So here we go. Okay, so I have these 2 sewn up. I'm going to go over to the ironing board and press them, and I'll be right back with the very last step that we have for this month. Okay, so now we're back and we're going to sew this last piece on. We have this smaller rectangle that we are going to sew onto the left side of these 2 blocks. I have already marked my scant 1/4 inch and I am ready to sew. Here we go. Okay, so we have those sewn on. All I have to do now is press them, and I'm going to hang them on the wall and show you the finished product, and we're done. Okay guys, so I am on my cell phone making a quick little video showing all of the pieces that we have for the Cotton Cuts mystery quilt from fall 2018. And these 4 blocks right here are the ones that we just made, and so that's where we are. We are, I don't even know, I think that was like number, is that number 5 or number 6? Hold up, this is probably gonna look terrible because I'm like, now I'm having to pull my thing out again. This is part 6, so it means we have 4 more block weeks left before we are putting them all together. So there we are. And I will be back next month with part 7.